Welcome back to RBR, guys, and the new Cayenne is here, and it brings along the most powerful Porsche Cayenne ever with the Turbo E Hybrid at 739 brake horsepower. But if that's not enough for you, you can also get the brand new GT package, which takes that Turbo E Hybrid to a whole different level, making it even faster, more dynamic, and with the same amazing looks of the top dog Turbo GT. It's even faster to 60, it's even more dynamic, and has one of the best soundtracks that you'll ever hear from a modern car, emanating from those amazing titanium tips. But perhaps this is that one Porsche that we might end up disappointed with, because every single performance hybrid that I've ever driven has ended up disappointing, being outrageously heavy with a silly horsepower figure just made to overcompensate for the weight of the car. Or have Porsche done the Porsche thing and actually created the first heavy hybrid performance SUV that is actually dynamically capable? Let's find out today on the first drive of the Turbo E with GT package. Me and you are so lucky to have Manscaped as a regular sponsor on RBR, because I know we're mostly a hairy bunch here at RBR, right? Whether it's up here or somewhere else, wherever it is, Manscaped always has us covered, which is why they say your balls will thank you. But now they've got us covered up here as well. And I think they've now come out with one of the best products for male grooming, and it's this. It's called the Handyman, and it's to get rid of that 3-day shadow that you get. I found this little device absolutely fantastic. The best thing I found for me is how compact it is, which is perfect for when I'm traveling. You guys know I travel so much on press trips, like on today's video, and it's chargeable via USB-C, so I don't need to take any other wires with me. But as far as the actual product goes, it is actually fantastic. It comes with a unique dual blade system that has your classic foil blade as well as a long hair leveling blade. And what that means is basically it doesn't miss anything while you're trying to get that perfect, like I've done this morning, just getting rid of the hair that you get annoyingly on your neck, for example. It's got the usual skin safe technology as well to stop you from getting cuts, etc. And it's also waterproof, so you can use it, for example, in the shower. So like I said, absolutely perfect for travel, etc. It's got 60 minutes runtime anyway, USB-C, perfect for getting rid of that, 3-day shadow. I love this, and mine is now a little bit better because I take it everywhere with me on my press trips. So of course, as a RBR viewer, you get a discount. Just use my code RBR on manscaped.com and you'll get 20% off plus free international shipping. So that's the code RBR for 20% off at manscaped.com. Huge thanks again to these guys for leveling up our male grooming game. Now back to the episode. So guys, as with the pre-facelift, the top dog of the Cayenne range is still the Turbo GT. This is a 631 brake horsepower super SUV that does a blistering 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds, has specific suspension and dynamics tuning, and a unique exterior, engine sound, and those lovely titanium tips on the rear. But this sadly is no longer a car that's available in most of Europe, in the UK, Japan, and other territories because of local regulations and emissions. Now, most manufacturers would have just put their hands up at that point and given up because you already have a 739 horsepower Turbo E Hybrid, but not Porsche. Porsche have done the Porsche thing, and they've created the best apology possible for those territories in what is called the GT package. And as you can see, it barely changes in looks from the Turbo GT, and it takes a hell of a lot in terms of what makes that car special and puts it into the hybridized version of the Cayenne Turbo. The GT package costs 20k more than your standard Turbo E Hybrid, so let's break down what you actually get for your money. We'll start first of all with the basis, which is our Turbo E Hybrid. As I said, this has got 739 brake horsepower, which comes from, first of all, an electric motor with 176 PS by itself, and of course a 25-ish kilowatt battery that sits at the back. But we also have a reworked V8 which has got 599 PS by itself, and this has been reworked in a number of ways. Particularly one interesting thing is that they've reverted to a single scroll turbo from a twin scroll, for better fuel consumption, but then you probably don't need the twin scroll because you've got the assistance of a full hybrid system, so it kind of makes sense. And they've also really concentrated on making the sound more emotional. So altogether, we've got 739 brake horsepower, a massive torque figure of 950 Newton meters and a quoted 0 to 60 of 3.7 seconds, and that's in your standard turbo hybrid. Now, the other great thing about that 25.9 kilowatt battery is that it actually gives us a really decent amount of electric range, up to 82 kilometers in town, which is actually fantastic. And it's not just pie in the sky, as you see when I'll drive later. The actual range you're getting is actually very similar to that. And with the onboard 11 kilowatt charger, the car will charge up in 2.5 hours, which is good enough for your daily needs. Then the suspension. We've got an all-new adaptive air suspension system in this with a 2-chamber, 2-valve system per our suspension point. And this is quite clever because it can adjust your rebound and compression on the fly and give you a greater breadth of ability in terms of comfort and sporty driving. You also get PTV as standard, and you can option Porsche dynamic chassis control and rear wheel steering as an additional option. So as it stands, the standard car, very dynamic, particularly with that new air suspension setup. Then we come to our Turbo GT, and as you can see, just the looks themselves change quite a lot, particularly that amazing looking rear end with the carbon spoiler and the titanium centrally mounted exhaust tips. I will show you around this car in a minute. I will have a nice close-up look to it. Now, in terms of what changes technically, let's check out what's under the skin of our GT package. First of all our suspension and chassis control systems have been honed like the Turbo GT. So for example, the car sits 10 millimeters lower. We've got GT specific pivot bearings that give us 0.58 greater camber on our front wheels. Our front wheels are in fact 0.5 inches wider as well, which is going to help with steering feel, precision, and particularly grip out of a corner. And of course, you can still option PDCC for anti-roll stabilization and higher performance tires from factory as well. We've got a mechanical steering column to save weight. We've got a carbon fiber roof as well to save weight. We've got carbon ceramic brakes as standard, and of course the titanium exhaust system. And we even have a lighter weight battery in here, so they've really gone to town. And all of this helps save about 100 kg versus your standard Turbo E Hybrid, which is significant. Our standard Turbo E Hybrid comes in at around about 2.5 tons, and this is 100 kg less. Now, that's quite a bit of weight still, you'd think, for a car. But if you compare this car to a normal non-hybrid rival like the X5 Competition, the X5 Competition weighs 2,450 kg, which is basically exactly the same as this 739 horsepower hybrid car with electric range. So viewed with that lens on, this is not bad at all. And I hope that translates when we actually drive it in a minute. And finally, it is ever so slightly quicker at 3.6 seconds, probably due to like the front tires and the other bits and pieces. So this is actually quite impressive considering the weight figure and the power figure on paper. I'm dying to drive it, and we're about to do that. Before that, I want to show you around the car. We'll have a quick look around the design changes, which I think are very important for the GT package customer because they want their car to stand out like a Turbo GT would. So let's take a look at that. I'll show you some of the changes on the inside of the new Cayenne. Of course, the exhaust, you want to hear it, and we'll show you that. And then we'll finally drive this thing, which you're going to find is actually really emotional experience. So that's the face of our Turbo E Hybrid in general, including the one with the GT package, but it's a really, really sharp look in the new facelift for the Cayenne. I love the lights, I love the little slim DRLs in there. I think you'll see this push out onto all the other new cars as well, like Panamera, Taycan, etc. It's very nice, very sharp. So I like that, that's lovely. Of course, you've got the sports design package in the front. This is all body colored here. Nice big air intakes. Again, looking really nice framed with the lights here. These wheels are awesome. I love the blue wheels. It's got the massive carbon ceramic brakes. Look at the size of those discs. They're huge. And then you've got the carbon fiber roof on top with kind of the recess, aerodynamic recess in the middle. But it's more interesting actually around the rear with our GT package because this is where all the flavor of the Turbo GT comes in. Particularly, come close and have a look at this. This wing is lovely. It's kind of like you've tacked on a proper GT car's wing at the top of the coupe here. And that just looks really cool. I like that. And then you've got the additional spoiler on the boot lid here, which is finished in gloss black, which looks great. And you've got a lot of breakup of like this lower diffuser with then your beautiful centrally mounted titanium tips with the signature blue inside. That is gorgeous. And of course, carbon fiber, all of that standard. Interestingly, it does say Cayenne Turbo. There's no mention of GT package, which I think is a bit of a mistake. If I bought one personally, I'd probably buy the Turbo GT badge and at least stick GT somewhere on this, I think. It's just a tiny badge, but it would mean a lot to the customers. This is your new light as well on the Cayenne facelift. Lovely, again, 3D finish like most new Porsches, which looks really quite nice in person when you get up close to it. But yeah, it's this rear end that you're really hoping for when you get GT package. And I think Porsche have nailed the look there. So yeah, looks great. Now you want to listen to these. Let me turn the car on, because it sounds bloody nice. There you go. So not many artificial pops and bangs, but a nice strong V8 rumble, which gets even better when you drive it. So I'm going to show you a few little things about the Cayenne facelift in the interior, then we'll head off for the drive. So in the inside of our brand new Cayenne, huge changes on the front there that I'll get into in a minute. First, just a few notes on the GT package. You can see you've got a unique trim as you would find inside the Turbo GT. So this particular style of stitching with the perforations, and then you've got the blue detail on the inside of those. I don't know if you can see that. It's very subtle, but it's beautiful. And that, of course, then matches our wheel design on the outside, should you want it to. And similarly, you get that lovely blue shade on our trim pieces, like our door handles here, and the trim going underneath the carbon. It's all really nicely done, and you'll find that on quite a few places. That alongside the race text finish with the blue stitching. This is a beautiful spec in this. And the other great thing about the GT package is the small diameter steering wheel in race text with yellow on your 12 o'clock marker, and of course your chrono package drive unit with the red sport response button as well. All of that unique to your GT package and makes the car, again, look and feel really special. It's trimmed in a very similar way in the rear. This is our 2-seat rear option, which is the lighter weight one as we've had in the GTS and the Turbo GT in the past. I really like the stitching. I like the way these seats are done. Hopping in the front, if you're used to the previous Cayenne, this is massively different. Of course, we've got this all new generation of digital screen, which has got the curved type screen as with the Taycan, but the way it's housed is actually quite different and unique to our Cayenne. It looks really good in person. The system still works in the same way, where you kind of flick through these 3 circles and you can choose the information that you see within them. So you can go to, actually, oh, that's quite nice, isn't it? That's a whole different design look. So instead of the 2 circles, you can go to the 5. I have not done a deep dive on this interior system yet. You'll find that in my other video of the Cayenne SE Hybrid V6, where we've done a kind of a deep dive on what the facelift of this car brings. So the digital screen is great. Of course, we've got an upgraded PCM system here as well. That brings along the more updated system that we've seen in the Taycan recently. Nice big buttons, all coloured. You also get the additional option of a passenger screen like the Taycan, which this car doesn't have, because I don't think you really need it, particularly not in a performance version. One thing I'm sad about is that your gear selector has moved here, like the Taycan, where it used to be a properly solid looking sports car like lever over here. And then you've got a new start-stop button, which is quite nice on the side over here. So that's the basic differences on the inside. Now let's head out and see what this car does on the road. Well, first impressions, that is a highly emotional sounding engine. And I'm just in sport mode at the moment, and that sounds glorious. I can really see what they meant by working on that emotional engine sound in this upgraded V8. And first impressions are of a car that does not feel as heavy as I thought it would, which, given the fact that it's very close to its rivals already, which I was very surprised about. I know it's a very Porsche thing to do, but you know, you don't come into this and suddenly like, oh my god, I'm driving an absolute tank, like something like the XM or the GT63S e-Performance. This just feels like a normal performance SUV. And of course, all of that is aided now by what is essentially sharper chassis setup. We've got the adaptive air suspension, which has got a huge breadth, particularly with the GT package, between comfort and sport. This is really impressive. It does not feel like a heavy performance hybrid. Now guys, we have to try launch control. Let's see what this car manages. I just want to see what the G-forces are like in this. Oh, a bit of a delay on the launch. That was quick. There's always a little bit of delay on that launch. There we go. We got an exact 0 to 60 of 3.7 seconds on launch. It doesn't feel as frantic, nowhere near as the Turbo GT did. And I don't think as quick as kind of the GTS felt either. And that is where this weight is kind of coming in. But still very impressive, still very quick. And speed is of no doubt. The 739 brake horsepower, very usable though. It doesn't at any point feel like it's overpowered. The speed is incredible. The hybrid system, you know, it doesn't feel as jerky as some of the other performance hybrids I've driven, where you just put a bit of power down and you get this immediate kind of bunny hop down the road. It's actually quite progressive, which is a nice feeling. I guess kind of in the way that it feels more like a normal combustion car, if that makes sense. This is a complaint I had about the GT63E, where it just felt too EV. Whereas this is far more on the combustion side of things, despite the fact that, ironically, having at the moment 73 km of quoted electric range as well, which is way more than that car was. So we're doing kind of the best of both worlds here. A lovely rumble, no like artificial pops and bangs or anything, just a really strong, really pronounced rumble that seems to come directly from our engine bay. It's enough. It's like an old powerful V8 rather than kind of, you get a lot of artificial stuff these days, but the irony does not escape me that this is a very powerful V8 hybrid that sounds very natural. But I like it. I'm actually thinking, how well would this work on like a Panamera Turbo E Hybrid with the GT package? That would be cool, wouldn't it? Steering is lovely. Again, predictably. Porsche do some of the best electric steering setups, but with a car like this, it's kind of even more key that you get that feedback coming through the wheel. And it feels good, like you have the confidence to kind of drive into a corner and not feel like you're going to hit the barricade trying to turn out of it. The engine is simply stupendous. Like I said, to me it just does not feel like a performance hybrid. I don't feel like I'm driving something that's got an electric motor and a battery in it. It just feels, you know, quite reminiscent of Turbo GT actually. I think in all the best ways. Of course that car felt a lot lighter on its feet because it's, you know, 250 kg on lighter. But it's not a million miles away, you know, considering the fact that we have all the benefit of the hybrid system, both financially speaking and in terms of actual day-to-day driving. You know, you've got a massive amount of electric range there. But more than anything, I always come back to emotion when it comes to cars like this, because when you're spending 150 odd thousand pounds on a car, it's got to sound and look the part. And this absolutely does sound and look the part. You know, it's that type of car, when I finish driving this now, I'm going to go back and configure one on the Porsche website. Oh, that was an exaggerated turning in such a big car. It handled it pretty well, actually, considering the size of it. Loads of grip out the corner. Those wider front tyres really helped with grip. This is a fun car. This is what it's all about. It's about the fun element. And this is seriously the type of car that's just going to put a massive smile on your face. Gearbox, of course, is torque converter, but probably one of the snappiest ones that you'll ever drive. It's a good companion to this engine. Now, we spoke about breadth of ability in terms of suspension. On a motorway, when we settle down, the sound becomes softer, the suspension is softer, which it notably is, and it just kind of feels like a normal Cayenne, which is great, because what you don't want is to have this situation where you get a GT package and it suddenly becomes a car that's not usable daily, because that's, you know, essentially what an SUV really needs to be. It needs to have that breadth of ability. You definitely still get kind of the texture of the road, even in your comfort hybrid type mode, but it's nice and comfortable. It's a smooth ride. I'd be happy dailying this. Chuck it into e-power mode and you're left with just the electric element. It would have been nice to have some of the Taycan-esque sound in this at that point, which they haven't quite done. I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity, but it's nice. Now we're going through some residential areas and I'm completely in e-power mode, not disturbing anyone as I pass their houses, and as I pass them, in we go into sport mode and we can enjoy some turns. Now if we switch into the hybrid mode, one cool thing in the hybrid mode is that it can charge up to 88 kilowatts, up to speeds of just 2 miles per hour, which is a massive upgrade versus the past, which was around about 18 kilometers per hour. And that's a big upgrade on your hybrid system. The other cool thing is when you're driving within town in hybrid mode, it's going to maintain your state of charge, and as soon as you get into urban areas, it will rebuild your charge up to around about 80%. So then when you want to do the more exciting things, you'll have battery available, and indeed when you want kind of the benefit of the consumption element, it's actually quite a clever system, probably the most clever one I've seen in terms of keeping your power to hand. So overall, a super emotional car with all that breadth of ability of still having the e-power element, a massive amount of electric range that I'm really happy with, and a car that doesn't feel as horridly heavy as I thought it was going to be. This is the first hybrid performance car I've driven that's given me hope that someone knows how to do this thing right. And really, I think it's them controlling that weight figure so well. Very impressive, very emotional. Love the soundtrack. I mean, if you're going to go for Turbo E Hybrid, why not just get GT package? I don't think you're really losing out on anything. If anything, you're just getting a bit more exclusivity. And for my money's worth, a heck of a load more of emotion, which is what the game is all about when it comes to these performance cars. So guys, that was the first drive of the GT package of the Turbo E Hybrid. Hugely impressive, worth every penny of admission. Just listen to that. What an exciting car. If you've enjoyed this episode of RBR, as always, please do like and subscribe. It's hugely appreciated. And I'll see you guys next time.